more
Yeah.
and more.
Yeah, sure. And we're going to talk a little bit more about export later on in the show. But first of all, I wanted to talk about digital. So digital, Brazil is an interesting country when you look at digital because things haven't quite worked in the same way as we've seen in North America or Europe. For example, downloads were really almost non-existent until about 3 years ago. And those have started to grow exponentially from then. You've seen like an 80 or 90%, 87% growth in the last 3 years, which is amazing. Streaming has come in as well with YouTube and Vivo generating revenues, and we also have streaming services now live in the country too. So, Marcelo, for you, how have you seen the evolution of digital over the last 5 or 6 years come about in Brazil, and what has really changed as far as the market?
Well, there's been some good news and some good advancements in the market for the digital business. The thing is, we're still very late in many aspects of it.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, iTunes was only released in Brazil in 2011. That's been only for 2.5 years now, and so we were pretty much 8 years late compared to the initial release of iTunes in the US, and 14 to 15 years late compared with the release of Napster
Right.
in the market. So the amount of time that we have to recoup now, and the change of habits that we have to work on the general public to make people understand that digital music is something that may and needs to be paid for. It's very hard. It's a very hard change of habit because you have a whole generation that pretty much grew up imagining that digital music is something for free, and not
Right.
because they wanted the music for free, but because they had no other way of paying for the music. So it's been like many years that we have to recoup now of this tardiness in the release of an official download service.
Yeah.
And still now, I mean, iTunes is in place for 2.5 years, but still in Brazil today, we're in the middle of 2014. iTunes is not available for local currency. If Brazilian public needs once a Brazilian person wants to buy a download of iTunes, he's gonna need an international credit card and pay in
Right.
dollars. So you have to remember that less than 5% of the population have access to an international credit card. So
Yeah.
this is pretty much the penetration that the downloads have now in Brazil.
And,
So
and other alternatives, alternative stores that people can buy
no,
downloads?
not for downloads.
Right.
Not for downloads. You have a few nice options for cell phones. In terms of still, we're talking about full tracks, some kind of a package subscriptions for some cell phone operators, but they're so small. There's not something without scale
Yeah.
to be relevant in the market.
That's very interesting. And so, Luciana, how do you feel about the evolution of digital in Brazil? I mean, the interesting thing is that, as Marcelo was saying, we're seeing that downloads and streaming are coming hand in hand in Brazil, whilst in for example, here in the UK, we've had 11 years of downloads, and then now they are starting to sort of fall off the cliff. People are starting to switch to streaming, and so you kind of have an evolution from one system to the other. But now you have both systems that are coming into play at the same time. So how do you think that's affecting the way people are approaching digital music today?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's still really early to see. I really believe people will adopt any of the services that are available. But it's complicated because we have, like Marcelo said, a whole generation is not used to buy music, not physical CDs or downloads or anything. They just get music in the internet, and that's the way they think music should be. But I believe that the services are there, and if they promote themselves to this public, and because the services are so nice and so good, I think people will adopt it. It's cheap. It's not really a problem. So we're pretty confident that we'll turn around this crisis in the market, and we'll get people to buy digital music, because the physical market is dropping down really fast right now.
Right. Yeah, it's continuing to